Okay. Hello. I'm going to talk today about, give a talk I tentatively named Love in Times of Gamification. And that's relevant for me for a couple of reasons. I work at Hubbub, that's a game company, and we make games for organizations, for cities, sometimes even for animals. This one with the Utrecht School of the Arts together. So we make a game for humans and pigs. And we really like making games. So we just wrapped up a game for a museum. We're starting to make a game for a hospital. Games is really what we like to do. That's one part of the motivation. The other part of the motivation is that I recently moved to Berlin. That in itself is not a special thing, but yeah, it happens a lot these days. And I would like to say that I moved here based on the technological and creative draw of this capital of Germany, but it's not as simple as that. I met somebody in Amsterdam on this website called okcupid. Maybe some of you know it, maybe some of you don't. I'm not going to ask the audience how many of you have had experience with online dating, because I know there won't be any honest answers anyway. But last year, this had some critical mass in Europe, I think, among a certain avant-garde, interesting group of people. And I met somebody there who I really was compatible with, but who I would never have met in any other way, really. So that was interesting. And okcupid was interesting for a technological crowd for many more reasons, because they've got their mobile experience down semi-perfectly. They've got a really good big data team where they do statistical analysis of the dating behaviors. And they've got really nice, inobtrusive, gameful design in the site itself. Just to touch on that, they made these reports of how people date and their dating behavior. And this is one of the most important charts, I think. This is the sexual activity by smartphone brand. And they've got tons more. It's really, really interesting. And it really got them a lot of attention among a certain tech-savvy crowd. And this was a debate everybody was having anyway, and they just came out and settled that. As far as it goes for the gameful design part, they've got tons of these tests on the website. These are things that you can do, and you can figure out what kind of a person you are. The things you find in certain magazines. But most of these tests are collaborated upon and created by users of the site, and the more people do them, the better the test becomes. And so lots of people have the excuse that they say, like, I'm an okcupid, I'm not here to date, I'm just here for the tests. Yeah, right. But it is a certain nice thing to keep people in the system. So yeah, the tests are a way that they can really capitalize on the attention that they have and keep people active. So that got me thinking, I make games, I had this experience. What kind of games, what more games are there really that deal with this theme of love and relationships? So to quote Eva Gabor, love is a game that two people can play and both can win. And so you would expect that there would be more games that do this, but there are more war games than love games for some strange reason. And the gamification thing, yeah, it hyped out somewhere a while back, and which I think is good, because gamification is problematic. It instrumentalizes the thing you want people to do, and especially with love, that's not what you want. You don't want somebody to say, oh, you came up to me to earn a badge. No, you have to come up to somebody because you are honestly interested. So instrumentalizing that part of the relationship works even less in this context than in other contexts. So people got tired of the badges and the points, which I don't really see working. And the gamification really only touches the mechanical part of games, while there are so many more layers you can reach. So yeah, gamification still works here and there. And Sebastian Deterding, who you can barely see on this picture, but I think he prefers it that way, has the definition in a recent paper that gamification is the use of game design elements in non-game contexts, and it works in some non-game contexts. But just to leave that aside, let's see what kind of games there are to survey a field of love games for one or more players. So if you go at it solo, really early you had these kind of games, the dating sims, from 1984 onwards. And if you Google this, you get really weird stuff. This is one of the more normal ones. This is a dating sim that's been translated to English. And they're more romance novels mixed with choose-your-own-adventure books, where you have hardly any animation. It's all in the dialogue, and you have to make some choices to make a certain desirable outcome. So you have to get the girl or get the boy, and then you win the game. It's cool. And in Japan, they take this a bit further. There's this weblog by Serkan Toto who surveys the Japanese gaming scene, and it's just brimful of really weird stuff. This is one of the more normal things, which is a harem-type host simulation game, where there are a group of people of the other gender, and you have to get some outcomes in a game situation. For instance, yeah, get that person. And yeah, it's weird. Like, the Japanese scene is really weird in many ways. Like, on Serkan Toto's blog, there is a game where insects fight each other, and Japanese people seem to love that. Well, I think insects fighting each other is awesome, but I can't see it really going big here. But these kind of host-type simulation games are really big in Japan. They've got mobile platforms that are really large, and they're making a lot of money with that. But these are being retranslated. For instance, this is Matches and Matrimony, which takes the graphics and the setting a bit more to a European place, based on Pride and Prejudice. And this is by a Dutch maker. This is Emily's True Love, which is very much more the Zynga aesthetic, where you have to have certain tasks and you do something. And Emily is a character in this game, and you can play her and well, find her true love. And it seems that 90% of the people who play this game are women. 80% of those women are between the ages of 25 to 40. So it's not even a children's game, but it really appeals to a vast new audience of people who are into gaming. And this is not new. PopCap did a study that the average casual gamer is a 43-year-old woman. So yeah, you can see that appealing. But just to go back into the weirdness, there's this dating sim called Love Plus by Konami, which is a big player in Japan. And this has really big real-world repercussions for the people into them. People marry these characters in mock ceremonies. People take them on holidays, young, lonely adults. And yeah, that does go into the more bizarre. And I think you had a lot of talk about robots these past couple days. And it just got me thinking, like, if you take this further, you go to this book. I don't know if this has been mentioned, but this came out last year. And David Levy makes a really compelling utopian argument about the future where people will have fall in love and into intimate relationship with robots. Well, I don't know, that might be a bit too far out, because at the moment we're here. You can ask Siri if she will marry you, and Siri will say, no, let's just be friends. So that's a bit for the single-player games. In the multiplayer scene, there is some stuff, but it's really, really premature. It's really early stages. And multiplayer is really where it's at when it comes to love or games, really. Because if you give people an environment to play in, amazing things come out of it that we can see from experience. I used to play this a while back, I'm in Like With You. This is by Oh My God Pop, the game company that just sold their Draw Something game to Zynga. But before that, way before that, they had this semi-dating thing where you could chat with people and play games. And yeah, this hasn't really become something. And well, they started making more games on this platform and finally sold their one. And what I recently tried more were the self-help type relation games. So we tried this out. This is the Icebreak. This is a thing where you can keep your relationship interesting by challenging the other person. And I talked with some people who I know that also tried this out. It's fun to have willing subjects for this. And it's a bit superficial. It does work, but it's really big on the conversion to sales. So they deliver a date in a box to make your life interesting. But like with all self-help, if you already want it to work, it works for you and can be a useful tool. But like most women would do this, but guys would not, because it really feels like work. There are some pre-release things like How About We for couples, where you can find interesting activities to do for in a couple setting, because these guys figured out that people could stay a couple for far longer than they would be looking for another person. But this is still pre-release, and I sometimes talk with these people from the I Love You tool, which is also for couples to keep things interesting and to create a proactive emotional therapy even before things are going badly. So you can have a mobile site where you can check in your emotions with the other person and do some stuff. But yeah, still not really active. What is really cool right now, which is happening, are the private social networks, where you have, for instance, Between, This is, I think this is the Korean one, and Pair is by a group of Canadian guys, which is a social network just for one other person. Which is, yeah, for some people it might be strange, but I can really see the use case for this. Because, which I don't really address. The idea is that you have one place where you can go and post something. You don't have to think about sharing settings or privacy or whatever. You're sure that only the other person can see that. But that is really not addressed, because if somebody grabs your phone and they log in, open Pair, they might see some really intimate stuff that you didn't mean for them to see. So data security and the way you protect your private data, and do you send it to their server or not, that's not really addressed yet. But from an experience point of view, it is an interesting, really niche use case. And yeah, most everybody has maybe a person that they would like to have a personal social network for. And Pair especially has this concept of the thumb kiss, where if you're both online at the same moment, you can put your thumb on the screen and touch each other remotely. Which, yeah, might sound silly and trivial, but I got really excited about this. And that's a bit sad that I have to get excited about something as simple as a thumb kiss. That shows that it's not a trivial piece of functionality, really, and that there is far too little experimentation happening in the social networking personal relationship scene. Like, if this is innovation, yeah, we have a long way to go. Game makers as we are, and also in a relationship context, the most interesting stuff happens in the physical domain, of course. Some friends of our, neighbors of our Dutch studio have built Fingal, which you might know or might not know, but it's the thrills of touching other people's hands. You have to put your hand on the iPad, and then you go into, it's like Twister for your fingers. And it gets really interesting or awkward if you have to touch somebody else's fingers for a prolonged amount of time. I've got it with me on my iPad, so if anybody wants to play Fingal in the break, I'm there. And another one that recently came up is swordfight, which is really awkward. You've got a controller with this knob and this button that you put near your groin. You're tied with your hands behind your back, and if your button is pressed, you're dead. That's about it. That's the mechanics. So people play this on the street in a sort of provocative fashion, and I'm really eager to play this for obvious reasons, but yeah, it might cross the line towards awkward for many people. But I think it's still a great concept by Kurt Bieg and Ramsey Nasser, and yeah, I really love this. This really takes it to a really, really far extreme. So I'm trying to bring it back closer to home and to see, like, you've got all these cool games, these engaging, gameful experiences, and how can you create them? What kind of practice do you need to adopt to create these kind of games? I recently read this from a research project by John Chipchase, where he says that part of the machine, the globalized products and services machine, is dedicated to designing, prototyping, testing, and pushing to market connected products and services that know more about us than we will ever know about them. We are living in an increasingly interconnected and increasingly automated world, which we talked about today a lot. The consequence of our actions may be road-mapped, extrapolated, scenarioed, but ultimately at best it's smart guesswork. And that's what I've been calling, really, we're designing in the face of defeat. We can never really know what another person is thinking or feeling. And that's the same for objects and products and services. We can never really know what they're going to do, how they're going to fare in a certain market. And they're going to fail most of the time, and we better really come to terms with that. And Jane McGonigal talks about the gamer mentality. Like, if there's anybody who's going at it in the face of defeat, it's a gamer. They're dying time and time again, and every time they're trying again to create or to succeed, to do that one thing that will make them win. So I think we really need to adapt a gamer's mentality for this. Because when you're trying to build games, you've got this mountain of user experience where it is really easy to make things beautiful. It is more difficult to make them usable then. And it is really, really, really difficult to make things fun. I'm finding this. And you can ignore the lower stresses at your own peril, but making stuff fun is really complicated. And you have these startups now that are trying to recruit web developers. And they're already having a really hard time recruiting web developers. But like game designers, trying to recruit game designers is really difficult. There are so few of them, and they all want to work at big AAA gaming companies that if you want to have a good game designer in your team that helps you make fun stuff, well, you're out for for a big quest, I guess. So the way we handle this part of it is a thing called, it's being called carpentry. We come together in a studio with people that we want to have there, and we make stuff. And we make it really by hand with each other in an old-fashioned way. And you can't really do this stuff. You can't buy this stuff. You can't buy design innovation. You can't really go to a design consultant who tells you how to build a cabinet. Well, yeah, what does that help you? You can't go to IKEA and build a generic product. We really need to have something crafted, something that really works for us. And this is also not new because you've got Steve Jobs talking about the parable of the stones, which is a really nice story that you might read up on. And it says that he says the same thing about designing a product, that it's keeping 1,000 things in your brain and fitting them together in new and different ways. So, talking about love and about happy endings, I hope that this presentation gives you the inspiration to look for love either as a person or as a company, and that you may live happily ever after. Thank you.